Did you know if you're a farmer, you can get your low tunnels paid for by the NRCS? Through a recently launched government program, farmers can get between $4 and $5 per square foot in reimbursement towards a Quick Hoops low tunnel system. That's free money to help increase production on your farm. Learn more about Quick Hoops and the NRCS program at shop.moderngrower.co or using the link below. You got a lot of different crops here, up to 10 varieties, and you're talking about maybe, possibly cutting out some of those. How have you found growing all those crops within a single space? One thing Chris has talked about in some of the shows we've done is his setup's really geared at growing a few crops really well. The more crops you grow in a given environment, the more generic the environment has to be. Now, there's obviously zones within that environment that might be different and more suited to certain crops. Given that you have this one space that's not divided up, have you found any issues where some crops just don't grow as well, or you've had good luck growing everything in the space you have?
Say the answer is yes and no. Cilantro does not like the heat in our building. Cilantro does not like the temperature over 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that's for sure. And so I think that's the root of our problem with that crop. And on the other hand, we have a lot of luck with basil for the same reason. And yeah, there are crops that are more difficult because of the temperature. That's the first, to me, that's the major parameter I think I can pinpoint for now. And if I consider cutting some crops, it would be the ones that cannot tolerate the heat. And there's a handful of things that are difficult to grow just overall as microgreens, I think, because maybe you need to find the really good quality seeds, but those are more like specialty crops for chefs. And we grow 30 varieties, about 30 varieties, 35. But to that is just occasional. It's just the restaurant buys like a tray a week of some sweet Thai basil, some stuff like that. But that doesn't go to our stores. And these are always a little challenging because we are not very used to growing those crops. But yeah, I think that would be the way to go about it. If we wanted to narrow down, we would just cut the crops that don't do well in our specific environments, and cool loving crops for sure. Too bad, I love cilantro.
And that's one, Chris, you've struggled with. Like cilantro, never had great luck with it?
Never had good luck. Same thing. The system is just a little too warm for it, actually. You really do need to have cooler temperatures. And yeah, following up on that, one of the tricks is, as with any crop, whether it's a microgreen or a ground crop, is what are the conditions you're growing in? How do they relate to the ideal conditions for that crop? And if they're not ideal, how do you adapt? And cilantro is a good example where, heat is heat, and that just does it. There's really no way to make up for it. You can't water more. You do stuff like that because that gives you other problems. But some crops, you change how you grow them or something, and you can make it work. I think it's interesting to hear you talk, Vincent, about growing so many different varieties and just a few trays of each. That's an approach that I've really pushed to avoid because I find there is such a learning curve with each new crop. There's a lot of time that goes into it, and then there's just maybe one or two clamshells for 1 or 2 weeks. And it's always just seemed like too much work, but it seems like that's really worked well for you guys. And it's another just, when we do these podcasts, Diego, sometimes I'm giving very specific advice and sometimes it's a principle. And the principle I keep going back to is you need to find what works for you, even if it didn't work for this expert or that expert. So once again, you seem to have done a really good job of finding systems that work for you guys and that you're able to build on.
This is not something that I like particularly, growing a tray of something and 2 trays of that, but I also want to support the local, very small restaurants here. It's a touristic region just seasonally, but there's no one else is growing microgreens around here, and they're excited to have that available. So it's a small price to pay, but it's not good business for sure. We're not making money on our restaurant sales, except when they buy sunflower shoots or pea shoots, because it's just, we don't charge a lot of money either. The competitors charge way more money than we do for those specialty crops. we haven't really put it on the table since we started doing it. And I started doing it more like as a market research than anything else. I just stuck to it because those chefs started buying from me. And I don't want to go to them and tell them, no, you can't have your plant anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this is something we're going to expand. We're just going to keep it small and local and easy.
Yeah, you made a couple of good points there. And one is you want to accommodate your restaurants, you want to support them, and it's a good way to explore new crops. And there's a lot of chefs that like to experiment with things. In the same way, I think there's a balance that the restaurant and the chef also want to support you as a grower. And so it's good to have that point of what can you do and what can't you do. And we've had this conversation with chefs over the years, because over time you're going to work with the same chefs for years in different restaurants because they'll move around and take you with them essentially. And we've done that where for a few weeks we'll grow something specifically for a chef. And sometimes we'll just say to the chef, no, we can't do that. It's just, it doesn't make any sense for us unless you want to pay this price, because this is the cost of it. And sometimes they'll go, oh yeah, we'll do that. That's great. Or they'll say, no, I get it. And so once again, I love the approach you're taking to support the grocers and the restaurants, but make sure there's a mechanism in there so you're not overextending yourself.
Hello, growers. Looking to turn your homestead into a profitable business? Or are you a farmer looking to boost your sales? Check out my book, Sell Everything You Grow. This book is the ultimate guide to choosing the right farm business model that fits your farm, time, and location. Discover which model has the highest profit margins and why diversification is so important. Whether you're selling apples, vegetables, or microgreens, Sell Everything You Grow will help you find your first market or expand into new ones. Get Sell Everything You Grow on Amazon and start selling more today.